You. By one.
This is Chav Zayin
We're
Amud
not going to
Beis.
go with Quran, we'll go with this.
Chav Zayin Amud Beis, second line. Moshe Rav Hamnuna. Moshe Rav Hamnuna. Omi Amina Behema Balas Mom Pistum Adamya. So this was what Rav said a page ago. That a Behema Rav really said, I'm sorry, Rav said Behema is considered more precious. That a Behema, money is considered Stam. Which we translated the Gemara means to say because animals are considered units, and might be considered why they're considered mufresh. And on that, Rav Nachman said, I think Rav Huna said that a behema balmum is different. Behema balasmum kistum adamya. That was Rav Hamnuna's statement, and that's what the Gemara is going to attack. Maybe we'll try to highlight that. He said that behema balasmum is kistum adamya. We didn't go into it so much, but we said
Because it's only barterable, whereas
if it's a behema tamima, then it's going to be used as a carbon. We said it doesn't mean that it's going to be used for the carbon that he needs, because let's say it's talking about cows.
It still has a use other than.
So it's considered more units.
More units.
But if it's considered behemoths balmum, we said people don't look at it as units. But okay, I'm not sure if that's a great shot, but that's what the Gemara is going to deal with. And the Gemara is a kasha. Yesterday we said this more or less, and we'll do it again. And then the next Gemara is going to be the same thing over again, but from a different source, but the same idea of the question and answer. Tashma, case that we can ask a kasha. We're coming to ask a kasha that this is not true. Then animals are considered mufresh. If a person set aside animals, he didn't say which ones, and they're bali for what, and they're bali mumin. It's just considered like mostumen. The same thing as money, which wasn't decided which monies are going to be used for what. You have a chatasol and a shlomim, so it's just more student. Let's say altogether it costs $300. Yes, $300. Said this is for mine zeros. That's called general. And if more student, we said that halacha was that if they dies, then you pull in a dava. And we're just coming to be magdir to define what's called stumen, what's called oppression. And before yesterday's Gemara, we had that animal that's a tummy, maybe a bar of silver, maybe birds, maybe what else do we have? Beams. Maybe they're considered units. People think of them as units, and it's as if you have three piles and you said one is a chatas, one is all, one is a shlomim, and even though you don't know which one is which, but it's considered that they're very more fresh. So we're talking about very, very detailed subject. What's considered as mufresh? What's considered to be specified that one is a chatas, one is all, one is for a chatas, one is for all, one is for a shlomim. Not that they're going to be themselves, but the money is going to be designated for one for a chatas, one for all, one for a shlomim. So Rav Huna, I think it was yesterday, he said that a behema balmum is considered stuma. If you had animal, you have a few animals, and you said that these are going to be for my karbanis, the money, of course, so we sell it, and the money is going to be used for my karbanis. That's considered one collective amount of money. You don't look at them as individual units. There's a kasha on that. Mishnah coming up later on. Case Adamu Ishma Galech al Nazirus Avim. There is a case that a man could use his father's karbanis for his own Nazirus. And the Mishnah says, when is that? Not in this case. Here we're just going to have today the case that's not the case that is. We'll get to that later. But what is the case that is not going to be? A person cannot use his father's karbanis for his own nazirus. Bisman shahaya, here they changed the gears. I just blotted it out over here. Bisman shahaya aviv nazir. Take out bisman shahaya hu aviv nazirim. Take all that out. Bisman shahaya aviv nazir. That's the way it should say. The hifrish aviv mosle nazirus. So if his father was a nazir, he was not a nazir. His father was a nazir, and the father had designated money for his karbanis, umeis, and the father died. Can the son now become a nazir and use his father's karbanis? And the son says, I want to become a nazir and use the money that my father had designated for his karbanis, but he died. So that's no good. You have to stick in over here, right here by the base. You have to stick in. That's not good. That's not a case where the son could use his father's karbanis. Over there it continues that if the son was also a nazir in his father's lifetime, but here it says if the son becomes a nazir after the father dies, and he says, I want to use the karbanis the money that my father left over for his nazirus, I want to use it for my nazirus, that's not good. What do you do now with that money? So the son cannot use it. What do you do with the money? So how you mos stumos? But that's the case we just said about. That's what we said, that the father had leftover money that he had for his nazirus. What do you do with the money now? You pull in a dava. That's what we know. We know from our Mishnah already that most you pull in a dava. What do you do if he had behema mufreshes? They changed the girsa. If you had animals that had been designated for his karbanis, what do you do with them? Chatas Tamus, although Tikor Bolam, Shlamim, Yikobu Shlamim. As we know, the Chatas Mesu Bola, that the owner is not around, he died, so that he just let it die. The Korban Ola is what is a Korban Ola, the Korban Shlamim is what is a Korban Shlamim. But that's simple. You read the Brisa, it looks very simple. But the Gemara is going to look deeper that Behema Mufreshes, my lava filu balas mum. How about if these animals would it be Bali Mumin? Would that also be considered was Bali Mumin when the father designated it, they were Bali Mumin. It says the Gemara is going to make the point when it talks about stumen, it talks about money. When it talks about Mufreshes, it talks about Behema. And we, Rav Huna here said that a Behema Bal Mum is also considered stuma. So why did the Bryce have to go to a case of money that's stumos and the animal is Mufreshes? You could have also an animal that's also stuma. If you hold that an animal that's a Bal Mum is considered stuma, so the Brysa could have kept in the same example that you could have animals which are stumos and animals that are Mufreshes. If it was a Behema Bal Mum and the father said, I'm putting these animals to be the money. I'm not going to use the animals, of course, it's a Behema Bal Mum, but I'm going to use that for the money that I need for my karbanos, and it's going to be considered stuma. Even if there are 3 animals, it's considered stuma because that's what Rav Huna said. That's what the Gemara's question is going to be, that if he's right, that a Behema Bal Mum was considered stuma, so it shouldn't have given an example of money which is stuma and an animal which is mufreshes, because you could have an animal which is stuma also. That's the Gemara's point. First, the Gemara says, "My love afilu balas mum." Maybe doesn't this animal that's considered mufreshes, even if it would be a bal mum, it's considered as separate units of designation. One is a chatas, one is ola, one is for a shlamim. Gemara says, no. Why should you think so? Tamima, it's talking about an unblemished animal that he said, this is a chatas, this is a ola, this is a shlamim. But now Gemara brings out the point. Aval balas mum bekistuma dami. You want to say that if it would be a balmum, then it would be considered stuma. So why does the Bryce have to change examples from money to behema? My yamos. When it wanted to say a case of stuma, why did it say a case of money? You flew in a dava. It could have said the same thing. Keep to an animal, and it would mean that he had separated an animal, which is a balmum, for his monies that he needs for the karbanis, and we're going to say that is considered stuma. And it would go to the dava. How come the Bryce had to change from money to an animal? Keep to an animal. So my answer is, achinami. That's what it really means to say. That's what it means. When you talk about a malmum, it's only holy for its money. It's not holy for itself. So when it says money, it includes also an animal which was not, which was a malmum that's also considered stuma. That's as far as we got yesterday. The next, now again, I just wanted to go over it again because the next one is going to be the same exact thing, but it's going to take a whole page. But it's really saying the same thing. It's going to be a brisa. I'm just going to preview what's going to happen. On the bottom line here, it's also going to talk about ma'os in contrast to a behema. And the same thing is that now, the same case we're going to talk about as far as the animal and money. When it talks about money, it talks about stuma, and it didn't say the case of the animal. And that's going to be the whole Gemara's deal. How come when you wanted to talk about stuma, like it says, Mos Aviv, and the next line on top says, Bisman Shein Stumin, it talked about money stuma. And it was talking about an animal before that. Why, when you want to talk about stuma, how come you talk about money? And when you talk about something which is mufresh, you talk about an animal also if it's stuma. And the Gemara is going to take a long time. At the end, it's going to be the same kasha over again. Mamish, the same shaka, the same thing we just did now. These lines here are going to be the same as we just did. That it says behema. Doesn't it mean a balmum? No, it means a tmima. But a balmum would be stuma. Why doesn't it say so? The answer is because that's what it means. When it says money, it means a behema balmum is the same thing. So really, we're going to get the same kasha and teres, but now we're going to get a lot of more information. So we're learning a brisa now. That's very long, and the brisa is the whole thing. The brisa is the whole daf. At least this Amud Beis and the following Amud. And all we're looking for is that one point. But we get a lot of information. Just to have a preview or overview of what we're going to do. It says extra words, 5 extra words. I just highlighted them in yellow. It says korbono one time. It says korbono a second time. On the next page, it says korbono a third time. Then it says, it says korbono al chataso. That's the 4th time. It doesn't say korbono again, but it says over there al chataso. That's the extra. And then it says another time al chataso. Five extra words. And the Gemara is going to learn out 5 things, but it's all really the same. The point is going to be that a person, when he brings a korban chatas, it's all talking about a korban chatas over there. This is Parshas Vayikra, where it talks about that a person does an avera. It talks about different kinds of korban chatas. For a nasi, asher nasi yachta, then it talks about a king. does Avera brings a special kind of a korban chatas, and then a regular commoner that does an Avera. And over there it talks a parsha about a kizba. He has a choice of bringing either a female sheep or a female goat. That's the parsha we're talking about. Earlier it talks about other kinds of korban chatas. The whole tzibur does an Avera, or the Mashiach, the Kohen Gadol, Kohen Mashiach. But we're not talking about those. We're talking about the Nasi, which would mean a king. Asher Nasi brings a special korban chatas, and then a regular individual that brings that does an Avera that's high forest, like El Shabbos, he did the Shogeg. He has to bring a korban chatas. He has a choice of bringing either a female sheep or female goat. And it says a lot of words extra. And the point's going to be to learn out, first of all, that he cannot use his father's korban. Somebody's father had done an Avera, this Chayv korban chatas, and he died. And the son did an Avera that also is Chayv korban chatas. He wants to bring his father's korban, and it's going to say no good. Yeah, he can't bring his father's korban for his own chatas. What's the din if somebody dies and he had leftover korban chatas? So then Thomas, we know that chamish chatas mesos, he does let the animal to die. There was a havamina that a person that a son could use his father's korban.
In his life.
Who's like that? No, the father died.
Oh,
We didn't do this yesterday.
but you said that. You can use his father's korban if the father's still alive.
No, we'll leave that alone. We didn't say anything. Like, no, that's going to be, we'll just give it later on. If someone became a Nazir, we'll get that. But here we're talking about korban chatas. Someone did an Avera in Mechal Shabbos by mistake, put on a light, whatever is, and he put aside a korban chatas and he died. And now the son wants to use that korban for his Avera. So it's going to say, no, the son cannot use the father's korban chatas. And it's going to take 3 psukim to say that. And then there's also going to be a din if a person himself had designated a korban chatas for one of his averas, and now he wants to bring it for a different avera, also no good. A korban chatas has to be dafka for the avera that he designated it for, and that's what's going to be the brisa all about. So we'll go to the brisa and we'll enjoy it as we go along. Then we're going to find out about what we're doing with all this.
So this
What
is
do we-
a side thing?
It's a kasha, but the whole brisa is a side issue, but we're going to find something about a Nazir over here.
Okay.
So far, what I said now, don't do it a Nazir. So it says in the pasuk korbono. So it probably has on the side here the psukim. Here it is. This is the pasuk that it says by Nasi, Hashem Nasi Achata. If the king does an avera, the Yikra Dalet pasuk Chav Gimel, Oho Dalet Chataso Asher Chata, the Evias Korbono Sirizim Zachor Tamim. If a king does an affair which is chayv v'chatas, for the regular commoner would be a female sheep or female goat. For the king, it's a male goat. That's a halacha that the pasuk says that a king that does an affair that's chayv v'chatas, he brings a male goat. And it says the word over there, korbono. That's what it's an extra word. It doesn't have to say. It could have said baby, series him. Want to say korbono? His korban, extra word. It says in the Brisa korbono. Korbono, Yosef, and Yosef korbono. The word korbono is a reboot to tell you that he can't use his father's korban. I guess the case would be his father was the king, he did an avera, and then he died, and now the son wants to use his father's korban. No, you can't use the father's korban. Maybe even if the father's alive, I said the father's dead. Imagine the father, but okay, maybe the father's alive. Also, he can't use his father's korban because he has to use his korban. It can't be his father's korban.
Why would you think that you could use the father's korban?
It's a korban. It was a korban chatas. He designated it for a korban chatas. So,
And this is a
and he did this. So,
we think that we would think like
even a stranger. How about a stranger?
A stranger.
Is a dafka father? I don't know. Is there any reason why we think that that he uses his father's korban more than anybody else's? I don't know. And also, I said that he died, but I don't see right now that he died. But I thought so. But you might. So that's it. You have a pasuk to say that he can use his father's korban. It has to be his own korban. But you have to have another pasuk. You have to say, you have to use another pasuk. Maybe only if it's not the same kind of an avera. The father had separated this, designated this kind of korban chatas because he did a certain avera, and the son did a different kind of avera, either more stringent or even more lenient. Then he can't use his father's korban. What if it would be an equal level? Aval, maybe if he said that did the same level of Avera, the father has designated for a light Avera, and he too, or the father did a Chamra Avera, and he too. What's called Kala and Chamura? So the Rosh says that there are some korban chatas that would be Chayiv Mises Bezdin if he would have done it. There's some that are only Kores. When you Chayiv korban chatas, if he would have done it amazing, it would have become Chayiv Kores or worse. So then B'Shogeg is Chayiv korban chatas. So that's considered more Chamra. The Averas that we Chayiv Mises Bezdin the one that would be capital punishment for doing it intentionally is more chomer than if he would have only been a chayiv kares if he did it intentionally. That's called the kala and a chamura. Every korban chatas means at least he would have been a chayiv kares if he would have done it b'mezid. But there are some that even would have been a chayiv mises bezdin also. So that's more chomer. So you might think that if I only had one pasuk that says you can't use your father's korban, that only would have been if it's not the same level of avera, either more or less. But if it would have been the same level of avera, maybe he could use his father's korban. So you have another pasuk, Tamaloma Karbano, a second pasuk of Karbano. Again, we look in the pasuk over here. It says in the side that's Vayikra Dalet pasuk Chavches. Over there, it's talking about a regular commoner that did an avera. So it says if he found out about his avera that he sinned, he should bring Karbano. See, Rasi Zin to Imon the Kevalachat Shechata, a female goat. For a king who does an avera, it's a male goat. For a commoner, it's a female goat. And again, it says the word korban, extra word. It didn't have to say it. It could have said babies. It doesn't have to say korban. It's an extra word. Again, to say it has to be his korban. It can't be his father's korban. And we know that already. So it's coming to tell you a chiddush that he can't use the father's korban even for a similar level of avera. That's why it says korban, the korban, Yosef and Yosef korban shalavim. So we have already two psukim to tell you that he can't use his father's korban, not even for a different level of avera. The Brisa continues, maybe that's only if the father had designated an animal. Like you said, that even if it's the same level of avera, he can't use his father's korban for his own avera if it would be an animal that the father designated. But maybe money is different. Maybe if the father had designated money, maybe the son could. What's the difference between money and an animal? Here brings in the issue of Nazirus. In Nazirus, that if the father had made himself a Nazir and he designated a korban, then the son cannot use the father's korban. But sometimes he could use the money of his father, which we don't know yet. It means we didn't find this out yet. We mentioned, like Chaim David mentioned before, that later on it's going to say something about that there is a time there is sometimes that a man could use his father's korban for himself. So far we said before that if the son became a nazir only after the father died, then not. He has to have been a nazir before. Also, it's going to say dafka money and not an animal. If the father left over an animal, then the son cannot use that for his own nazirus. But if the father left over money stumin, so then the son will be able to use that for his nazirus if he became a nazir also in the lifetime of the father. So here it says we find the difference by nazir. We find the difference between an animal or money, as far as the son utilizing the father. So you might think that by korban chatas also, that even though we have psukim that the son cannot use the father's animal that was designated as a korban, maybe he could use the father's money that he had designated as a korban, because by nazir there is such a thing. So to see it inside, even though we have two psukim, you might think, Yochel, about 7 lines up, you might think that he can't use his father's animal, but behema, he can't use his father's animal that the father had designated, even if it's the same avera, same level, kala ala kala, chamura ala chamura, because by nazir there's no such thing as using his father's animal. There's no such thing as a son using his father's animal for his nazirus. But maybe by money is different. Aval, you might think, maybe a son would be able to use the money that his father designated for avera. And you might even think even on a different level of avera. Next page is man shehein stumin. Because you do find a case that a son could use his father's money for his nazirus. Over there it says that the father had not designated what korban is for. He does say this money is going to be for my korbanos. So then the son will be able to use that money for his own nazirus. We'll see more details about that later. About the Aflamed it says, but anyway, that would be havamina that maybe the son could use his father's money that had been designated for a korban for his own avera. A third time, and again to look on the side, which pasuk is that? That's talking about the same thing about a commoner who did an avera, that he also has a choice of bringing a female sheep. If he wants to use a sheep, he could use a female sheep. A regular person, a hedyot, if he did an avera, he could either bring a female goat or a female sheep. And here it says again the word korban. Again, it didn't have to say. It could have said it didn't have to say korban. A third time it says the word korban. That's to teach you that he can't use his father's korban, even the money. That's why he says even a third time. v'karbano Yosef ben Yosef v'karbano. So 3 times we have the word karbano to say that the son can't use his father's katas, not only the animal for a different level of era, not only the animal for the same level of era, not even the money that the father had designated for his avera.
There's a different person.
3 times that says karbano, right?
Uh-huh.
One is by the Nazir, one is by the regular person, nefesh kisechta, and he has a choice to bring a female goat. And the next parsha says he also has a choice to bring a female sheep. So it says the word karbano 3 times. We learn out that he can't use his father's animal or money, even if it's a different level, same level of avera. But the price continues. There's still things to talk about. 3rd line. Put in the word aviv over here. Right, I'll put in the word aviv. So we do know already that you can't use even the money that was designated by his father. Even if it's the same level and it's money, we know all that already. We've learned out 3 korbanos that they can't use his father's even money, even for the same level, for the same level. But maybe he could use a carbon that he designated for himself. Maybe he could use his own carbon for a different avera. He designated it for one avera, and then he wants to bring it for a different avera. So no, Talmud Lomar a 4th time. Karbano al chataso. It doesn't. The word karbano is. Do we have it over here? Karbano al chataso.
Is there a 4th pasuk on it? Oh, dialogue.
He doesn't bring it. Which pasuk does he have over here? Number 2 here.
420.
Karbano al chataso. It doesn't say it all together. Oh, I love chataso. Asher chatav evi karbano sirasi zim tumimo. It goes back. It goes back to the pasuk before by the female goat, which was mentioned before on the previous page. That was in 2nd karbano. But over there, besides saying karbano, it also says al chataso. It says al chataso. So really, the drush is going to be al chataso. That it has to be for his sin, and that drush is going to say we know already has to be his sin, but it has to be this sin, the sin that he made the korban for. He can't take a korban which is designated. Really, it's better to say the word the al chataso part only.
So is also part of the pasuk.
Right, and that's what the drush is now. The drush is going to be on the al chataso part, not on the korbono part. That we darshened already. Korbono al chataso. That it has to be for his sin, and the word is darshening korbono l'shum chataso. That it has to be for that sin, even though it's another sin that he did, but it has to be for that sin. It has to be for that specific sin. One more pasuk you need. It's going to take a long time with a lot of your souls change over here.
It's still the brisa.
It's still the brisa, right? Very long brisa. And the point is going to be that maybe money's different. Maybe money's different.
Well, it wouldn't have to be the same. If it's money, maybe it doesn't have to be.
Maybe if he designated money for a korban, he could use that money for a different korban. That's going to take a long time to figure. And the pasuk is going to, and the one's going to end off about 10 lines. Now it's a long one. It's going to say that it says again, al chataso, and that's another time that it says it. Does it give us a pasuk for that? Doesn't give us a pasuk. There's supposed to be I think that the side of they made a mistake. There's supposed to be another pasuk at the end of the parsha. They left it out. At the end of the parsha, it says that again another time the word chatas, and we're going to learn out that he can't even use the money that he had designated for one avera for a different avera. So we'll do that inside. Yochel lo yetze bebhema shefish la'asmo min hakala alakala or min hachamura lachamura. On the screen, I took out some of the girsos. That's a little confusing over here, and it's easier without it. So if you want, we can skip the parentheses. So it makes it easier. I think this is the real girsa that comes out in the Saviyah that they have the girsos. It's easier girsa. You might think that he can't use a behema that he had designated for himself, even for the same level of vera. Even the filo doesn't make sense now. The next two lines you can take out. Shekain im hifish behema al chaylev behevi al adam behevi al chaylev. Skip the word sharei. Lo mal v'lo kiper. Avol yotzei b'mo shehifish la'atzmo min hakala l'kala min hachamura lachamura. Shekain im hifish la'atzmo mos min hachaylev behevi al adam behevi al chaylev. Sharei, or also you can take out the word sharei again. Mal v'kiper. So it's pretty long. And what does it say? There's a difference between an animal and money. a person who designated an animal for one avera, that we know already, that you can't use that animal for a different avera. But there's still a havamina that you could use money. Money that are designated for one avera, maybe is more reason that he could use it for a different avera. And the Gemara is going to say no. It says al chataso a fifth time. That's no. Only if it was designated for that avera. You can't use money that was designated for one avera for different avera. But here, what's the havamina? Why would you think that is better? Why would you think it's more reason? So it says something about me'ilah. That's what the words are going to say. Me'ilah. That when a person would change a korban, the money, you can go both ways, the behema or the money. If he changed the behema from one korban to be a different korban, you're not supposed to. If he did, is there going to be me'ilah? It's not going to be me'ilah. It's not considered that he benefited from that animal, and he should be chayv korban.
But it's wrong.
It's wrong. He's not yotzei, but is it called me'ilah? Not called me'ilah. If he had designated money for one korban and used it for a different korban, there is going to be me'ilah. Why is that? And that's really irrelevant if he's yotzei the korban or not. The Rosh explains that when is there me'ilah? Only if he is yotzei lechulin. If he made that hekdesh should become chulin. Usually, when a person benefits from the hekdesh, it's yotzei lechulin, and that was the me'ilah, that you caused the hekdesh to become mundane. When a person
didn't become
the money does become chulin.
Why?
Because he took the money that was designated for one korban, and he went to the market to buy an animal for a different korban.
Oh, he didn't. Oh, he used it.
And if he didn't use it correctly, and that money goes to chulin, the store man, the storekeeper is going to the merchant over there of the animals takes the money and he's going to use it for something else. It's not any. He took it out of the rishus effective. When a person takes an animal that was designated for a korban chatas and he brings it for a different chatas, he didn't do any meila. He didn't take it out of the rishus effective. So there's some point over here that the meila, if you buy money, you are moil in the money. That shows that you in some way you're able to take it out of the rishus effective. So you might have thought that you also could be used that it's more yours in a way that you'll be able to use it. If you did, maybe you would be yotzei the korban even. The facts are you're not yotzei the korban and still there's a chiluk of meila and not. But the same since you see that there is me'ilah, is considered the person has a bigger handle on it, that he's able to take it into his rishus. Maybe that will be a reason that he would be able to use it for a different korban, for a different avera. He did one avera saying designated money. He was Machal Shabbos. He designated money to bring a korban for that, and then something else happened, a different Shabbos, a different avera, or whatever, and he wants to use that money. You might think that he could take that money, use it for different for that other chatas, because you see that by changing money, there is a me'ilah. So maybe there's also a reason why he could transfer it to his rishus, as he's authority on it as far as making another korban. That's why you have to have a fifth time to say the word al chataso. No, even this case also, not only an animal, even money also, you can't use for a different avera than it was designated for. Just to see the words, it is pretty long, and let's see if we can see it inside. Yochel. You might think,
Which
lo yetzei b'behema shefish la'atzmo. You can't use an animal that was designated from one avera. Even if it will be the same level of avera, you put the filu. You put the filu right here. There's no filu, but if you want to stick in a filu, it goes over here. After the word shefish la'atzmo, right there, you can put in the word afilu. That you can't be yotzei with an animal, even if it will be from the same level. You can't use an animal from one to the other. Now skip the next two lines. Shekain, if you had designated animal for one avera, he ate chaylev by mistake, chayv chatas, and then he bought it for dam, another chata, another avera, which is chayv chatas. Or the dam baby ala chaylev, low mal. Over there, if he would have done that, he wouldn't be chayv mila, as we said, because it didn't go out of the rishus effective. And also low keeper.
Yeah, that's what. You have to bring another one. Low keeper.
Low keeper, right? We're coming to say low keeper. That's our discussion now. So it's not so clear that the Gemara brings in if he's keeper or low keeper. We're trying to talk about is it? They say it means since it's low mal. Maybe over there that's the reason why it's low keeper. Since low mal, maybe over there it's low keeper. That's why it's not a good korban for him. But maybe by money that it is going to be me'ilah. Maybe it's also going to be mechaper. Maybe it's a good korban also. Aval maybe yotzei b'mo shefish la'atzmo min hakalu l'kalu min hachamura l'chamura. Maybe if he had money there designated for one avera, and now he wants to use it for a different avera on the same level, shekain im hifish la'atzmo mos min hachelev hebi aladam hebi alachelev moal, and maybe keeper.
You did take out the chamura l'kala.
Yeah, take that out again. So you might think over there, since if he designated money for one avera, of eating chaylev by mistake, and then he changed it to buy an animal for the blood that he ate by mistake, or the opposite, over there he is going to be mal, as the Rosh explains, because you went to the market to buy an animal that you weren't supposed to, so that's considered mila. So maybe over there also keeper, you might think so. We finish the brisa. The brisa tells you five halachas that you're not yotze with your father's carbon 3 times, not only if it's a different level of Avera, even if it's the same level of Avera, and even if it's money, not only an animal, and then you're not yotze on your own. You designate an animal for your other Avera, you can use it for this Avera. And another pasuk, even from money that you're designated for an Avera, also you can use it for an Avera. That's the whole brisa. We got a lot of information. Beautiful, we know a new halacha. What does that have to do with us? With the Naziris over here. So we go back to what we pointed out in the beginning, that in the discussion by the third case of the father over there, it said maybe money is different than an animal. And when I wanted to say that, it said because you see, fine, it said most of it, the money. And it says further, stumen, we need that word also, that it's mazmanche and stumen, that if the father had designated money without specifying what each of the money should be used for, that's more stumen, so then the son is allowed to use that for his own use. We'll see more details later, but under certain circumstances, the son will be able to use the father's money, stumen, for his own use. And it's talk about money. Why speak about money? Why doesn't someone talk about animal? If you say, Rav Nuna, back to the beginning, Rav Huna is asking Rav Huna, if you say that Behema Balas Mum is considered stumen, so why, when the Brisa wants to give a case of stumen, does it talk about money? We're not talking about an animal which is a Balmum, which you say is the same as money. When I talked about the animal, it spoke about Mufreshes, it spoke about an animal. And of course, it talks about stumen, it talks about money. But you're saying that an animal also, if an animal is a balmum, it's also considered stumen. So why talk about money? An animal which is a balmum is the same thing as money. So why does it talk about money? That's the Gemara's diak over here.
That's the Macy. That's why it's Macy.
They're right. That was the whole kasha. That was Nazir Rava today, and that was his kasha. And where does it go here? Katani Mias. In any case,
Nuna.
That was a kasha. No, that was Nuna was at the top. Yesterday's Gemara, and now we started today.
Macy in the middle here.
Right,
Rava.
right.
Rava.
Yeah, he has this kasha. This is a very similar kasha to Rav Nuna. And he's coming to attack that. Brisa is mashpa that you don't have a case of stumen, only money, not animals. And that's what the Gemara says over here. Tani Mias. In any case, after our Brisa, we learned behema. That's the word over here. If you go back, that's the word over here, behema. It said behema of it. When it wanted to talk about, it said that this behema is considered mufresh, it's considered mufresh, it's considered specified. And the question is why? My love, afidu balas mum isn't even saying that a balamum is also considered that's specified. No, the person says no. Who says no? To me, but that's talking about that it was an unblemished animal. But you want to say that a balamum would be considered stuma? Balas mum mai stuma dam. You want to say that behema balamum would be considered stuma? So why is the Brisa talk about money? My the tani most, and the bottom line, it said over their money. Shefer shavim. Listen, balas mum. If you say that a behema balas mum is also considered stuma, the Gemara says that's what it means. Achinami, that's what it means. The lamai chaz yolid mei. The mei hainu mos. What do you do with an animal that's a balamum? You sell it. That's what it's all worth. It's only worth its money. So that's included. When it says the word most, it also means a behema balamum. So the Gemara had these two kashas. Yesterday's kasha, today's kasha, and was all coming to attack Rav Huna, who said yesterday that a behema balamum is considered stuma, and Gemara had two kashas because it didn't say so. And the answer both times is the same teretz. Doesn't have to say it because that's all the animal that's a balamum is worth. What do you do with it? You just get money for it. So it's considered money. And he's not knocked off. Rav Huna is not knocked off. If that's good, we continue.
Okay.
So even though it's a couple of days already, we're really talking about a husband being made for his wife's naziros. How do we get into all this? Because we had a canceled naziros. The woman had made herself a nazir, and she was fulfilling it. And then the husband came in the middle and he knocked it off. And we said that even though he knocked it off, Mega's guy, he only knocks it off from here on in, but the naziros wasn't naziros. And therefore, the korbanos have to be dealt with. What do you do with the korbanos? And that's why I get into the whole subject about that chatas tamvos and the money is bought for nola, the shlomim. I'm sorry, the animals bought the shlomim, all is bought for nola, shlomim is bought for a 1 day shlomim without the bread. Then it's the book about more stumin. That's how we got into the whole sugya. But we're in the middle of the sugya that the husband is made for his wife's naziros. But this mission continues with that subject. Till when can a husband be made for his wife's naziros? She says, the wife says she's a nazir, the husband hears about it. Till when is he relevant into the sugya over here that he's allowed to be made for his wife's naziros?
Why isn't the same day like everything?
Yeah, surely Yom Shama. Yeah, surely it's only the first day. Only the first day that he hears.
About the third day, the 30th day, you heard about it.
Yeah, let's say that one. Now let's talk about why is the husband somebody? Why is he allowed to be made for his wife's nether? We know that husband only could do Vom Shebeino Leveina or Inui Nefesh. So what's wrong with a wife being a nazir? Why would the husband not like it? Anybody? Why the husband not want his wife to be in a zero?
Somehow it'll affect him.
How's it going to affect him?
He liked it when she would drink wine.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I get it.
Okay, so wine is a little different nowadays than it was, but it's considered inner nefesh. If she cannot drink wine, she's afflicting herself that she can't drink wine. Wine in those days wasn't like wine is today. It's cola, right? Like drinking soda. They had a soft drink. They did diluted wine, and that's how they would drink wine. So she's not going to drink wine. What's she doing? Water. Only drink water the whole time. So she's afflicting herself. She's not going to enjoy.
She's going to take it out on him.
That's the point of being enough. He doesn't want his wife to be afflicted. That's called inunef. There's also good dvarim shebein all the way now. Either one is good enough. Affliction and also dvarim shebein. He's allowed to take away her affliction. And also, so that's the pashat pshat why he's allowed to stop her naziris because he doesn't want it to be afflicted. Yes, nefesh, lanos nefesh.
Okay.
Dvarim shebein all the way now is extra that by initially that even if it affects him and it's not considered in nefesh, like she's not going to put on jewelry or whatever, even maybe it's also considered affliction. We have to about that. It's not considered affliction. But anyway, 2 points that a husband's allowed to nullify his wife's naziros. Neder, either if it's inui nefesh, self-affliction, or if it's something that has to do with him, something between them. So we'll start off simply that the reason why a husband's allowed to nullify his wife's naziros is because she's afflicting herself.
Mhm.
So,
I mean, even if it doesn't relate to him.
right.
By not drinking wine.
What?
By not drinking
By
wine.
not drinking wine. She's abstaining from drinking wine. That's affliction. Her husband has a right to not nullify that. If she says, I'm not going to eat apples, I'm not going to eat bread, whatever she's going to say, husband has a right to nullify that. All that is self-affliction.
Mhm.
So, till when is that relevant? Till when is she usher to drink the wine? So, Tanakama says, which the Gemara is going to explain that one she brings korbanos, right? Atas, Ola, Shlamim. So if one of the bloods were brought, the Zrika, even though the
How
orders,
many bloods are there?
there are 3, there's Atas, Ola, and Shlamim.
Oh, each one has a.
And usually the Chatas is first, but it talks about if you do different order, but if any one of the korbanos were brought with the Zrika, he can't be made for anymore. Why not? It means she really finished on the zero. She finished the 30 days, she finished whatever she accepted, and it's ready the last day. And maybe it's even the day after, whatever. But till when is she not allowed to drink wine? So Tanakama says that once they did zrika on any one of the korbanos, she's allowed to drink wine. So any achal hafer, he's not entitled to make for anymore because what's the problem? He wanted to drink wine, she's allowed to drink wine. And even though there are another 2 korbanos to bring, okay, she'll bring them. There's no reason to be made for. Why are you being made for? What do you gain? The husband can only do it as long as it's seen in nefesh. But once one of the bloods were sprinkled on the mizbeach, she's allowed to drink wine. So we told the husband, you have no problem. You have no right to be made for anymore. So can't be made for. Good. So far, it's
She's
good.
only bringing those 3 korbanos because she's finished in the zero.
Yes, but what does finished in the zeros mean? So here it says that she's not allowed to drink wine until she brings at least the first korban. Once they did zrika, the shchita alone not. The shchita alone, she can't drink wine. But by the zrika, it's only how long does it take from the shchita to the zrika? But we're being very specific. That once they did the zrika on the first korban, she's allowed to drink wine. So now he has no right to be made for anymore. But if it was not yet the zrika, so he has a right to be made for. Even though it was a problem. Wait a minute, they should do the zrika. He wants her to drink wine right now. He doesn't want it to be afflicted. So even after the shchita, he still could be made for after the shchita of the first korban. But after the zrika of the first korban, now we can't because already she's allowed to drink wine, and there's no more inui. There's no inui.
Even though there's still procedure there.
Yeah, but that doesn't bother him. No reason why the husband should take it down. Well, it doesn't have a difference to him.
And how do we
He has
know
to pay.
that?
He has to pay for it.
We know for it here. How do
Pay
we
for it.
how do we know
Say
that-
it already.
How do we know that?
There was, put this covenant aside.
and she had a right to do it. Even though if he's made for it now,
Either way, it's, he's not gonna get the money.
if it's his, I think he is. If it's his, then it does go. Yeah, you're behavior. Okay, read it out. What are you saying?
How do we know that she can drink wine after the first blood?
So the Gemara's going to bring down. That's what the Gemara is going to explain, that this is the Tanakama
This is
holds.
where we learn it. from
Right.
this
No,
Mishnah.
in the Mishnah we see it. We'll probably see it later on also. But this is the kavanah. This is the intention of the Mishnah, that since she could drink wine now, that's the reason why he can't be made for anymore, because there's no Ina Nefesh. Ina Nefesh is over. If it would be before the Zrika, there is Ina Nefesh. She could be made. That's Tanakama. He's more earlier. He says that not only by the Zrika, even after the Shchita also, and she can't drink wine. Even by the Shchita of any of the 3 Karbanos, also he can't make her anymore. He doesn't explain why. The Gemara is going to explain why. It seems that he also agrees that she cannot drink wine. So why is he not allowed to be made?
Well, he agrees that
She cannot drink wine until there's Zrika.
but he can, and still he
But still, he
can.
cannot be made for. That needs explanation. Why not? Why shouldn't he be able to be made for? He doesn't. He wants her to drink wine. I would have thought, wait 2 minutes and do this Zrika. I'm not sure. But the Gemara doesn't look at it like that. The Gemara wants to know, why should Rabbi Akiva say that after the Shechita can't be made for, she can't drink wine? So he wants to stop her, nefesh. The Mishnah continues. This everything we're talking about is ready when she finished all the zeros, and now she finished everything that she has to do about the 30 days or more, whatever she accepted. And now the issue is about the process. The glachas means the whole process at the end of the kosher naziros. But if there's a stage about the glachas tuma, that she became tameh, she made herself a nazira, and she became tameh, and she has the whole process of getting out of that in order to start again. So then for sure yofer, for sure it could be made for her. Why? Because she has to do it all over again. Shehu yochel lomar yavshi be'isha menubelas. I don't want a woman who is, now the word menubelas usually means disgusting.
Right.
But here the disgusting point means that she's not drinking wine. She's self-afflicted. I don't want a self-afflicted wife. Which is really, that's Pasha. This is like saying in the middle of the Naziros. The Glachas Tumah is another way of saying in the beginning of the Naziros. She's gonna have to do the whole Naziros over again. She became Tameh. This is another way of saying that a husband surely could be made for as long as his wife cannot drink wine. And that's why the whole Naziros, and even if she became Tameh, he's gonna do it all over again. He doesn't want. He stops her. I don't want you to be a Nazir because I want you to drink wine, my dear. Right? He says, you don't want to drink wine, self-afflicting. I take off the self-affliction. You should be drinking wine, enjoy. And therefore,
We're explaining Rabbi Akiva.
everybody agrees to this. This point,
Everybody agrees. So, and how did you translate Nevelas?
Novellas means, don't have a good translation. If anybody has one, it means that she's self-afflicted. She's
Okay.
the word libel means kind of a disgusting, but not disgusting to him. It does say EFC, I don't want. But it means that, like you said, maybe that's what everybody said, that if she's not going to be drinking wine, she's going to let it out of him. He doesn't want a woman who's
Self-afflicted.
self-afflicted. And that everybody agrees to. Everybody agrees that if she can't drink wine, he's allowed to stop it. The question was that the Tanakama said once she could drink wine, they did this Zrika. So that's the time that he cannot be made for, but still then he could be made for. Rabbi Akiva has some reason that after the Shechita also he can be made for the Shechita of the Korban Tahara, not the Shechita of the Korban Tumah. The Korban Tumah, of course, Rabbi Akiva will say he could stop because she can't. She's not going to be able to drink wine. So everybody will agree. Tanakam also will agree that. Tanakam will agree that by the Korbanos of Tumah, even if they did the Shechita, you could stop it because there's a whole Nazir to start over again. As long as she can't drink wine, Tanakam also agrees that he could stop the Nazir. He could be made for it. That's his whole point. Tanakam would have said after the Zrikas Adam of the Korban Tahara, that's when she could drink wine.
Mhm. But if it's Tumah, then it means even after the sprinkling, he can still make it. Is that what you're
Right,
saying?
right. Because she can't drink wine.
Because she's
She's going to start all over again.
Yeah. Okay.
Rebbe, now Rebbe Meir or Rebbe, some have Meir, some take it out. Rebbe Omer, even after the Zrika
Yeah, of the ending when she
of the
comes
ending,
in.
he still could be made for it, even though she could drink wine already. She could drink wine. He's going to be the most lenient. Rabbi Akiva said only till the Shechita. Rabbi Tanakama said till the Zrika. Rabbi says even after the Zrika also he could be made for it. Why? She's drinking wine already. So Yachalomar Yevshi Bisha Mugulachas. I don't want a shaven wife, because in the process, it's going to be the shave your head. That's what the Nazir does. After you do the korban chatas and ola, and then there's a shlamim. So then the Nazir shaves his head over there in the Lishkas on Nazirim in the base of Mikdash, Pesach al Moed, and then they put the hair under the fire, under the Zivchei Shlamim. So he doesn't want his wife to take a shave, to shave her head, because she's a Isha Mugulachas. I would have called that Isha Munuvelis. We don't call Isha Mugulachas. Munuvelis means that she's self-afflicting. And here he doesn't want a wife that has no hair. Of course, it's going to grow back.
Self-afflicting.
She's not self-afflicting.
But-
She's
but-
drinking
but-
wine,
but
but
it
she's going to be
deals with him.
disgusting. What?
Now it's shaykh to him.
Yes, because he doesn't want her to shave her head.
It's
Even though it's going to grow back, he doesn't want it to be shaven.
Uh-huh.
And it's it's a big evil. It's a big disgust that a woman should be shaven. So that's we have to know why anybody argues. The Chorah is a big taina. What bothers the husband more? That the wife's not drinking wine, or that she's shaving. So the Chorah, everyone should agree to this. So tomorrow's going to talk about why it shouldn't bother the husband. Maybe why wouldn't it bother the husband
Why about her?
by shaving her head?
Because he's a Satan.
So it should surely it should bother.
He's a Satan, it shouldn't bother him.
No, but what are they?
It's
The Hasidim are.
a terrible minhag. Terrible
Right,
minhag.
Victor Miller.
Terrible minhag. It's not Torani. It's not Torah. It's not Torani. The Gemara is amish against it. There's no such thing.
The Torah's against it.
Surely
From here.
From here, yeah. It's a Isha Mugulachas. It's a terrible thing. Where they got it from, nobody knows. And it's terrible. And it's terrible, terrible, terrible. What's it to do?
Okay, I know a woman who's very happy.
Her husband's not happy.
What about her husband?
I thought she's doing it for her husband.
She's doing it for her husband.
I thought so.
Oh, she's doing it for her husband.
She's doing it for her husband. She's a shaven woman. That's why the husband happy about that. She's not doing
I
it for
thought
her.
he wanted her.
Oh.
Why does he want to do it? Because
He's brainwashed.
so okay, so that, but that's disgusting. That's a disgusting wife. Yeah. I'm sure she doesn't want him to see her like that. Okay,
Okay.
where did it come from? Probably from some historical thing that has nothing to do with Judaism.
It was a king that would want to sleep with anybody that got married. So they didn't know what to do. The Jews didn't know what to do, that they were going to sleep.
So they made themselves disgusting.
So
Something
they
like that.
made it look disgusting, so the king wouldn't
Sure.
want to sleep.
Okay, that
So
makes
that's where it
sense.
started, but then.
Okay.
Is that how it started?
Yeah,
That's how it
started.
That's how it.
Oh, that's
That's how it
good
should end. That's how it should end. Also,
So then when he died, it should have ended. That's it, you know. Goodbye.
Impossible. The Torah never says such a thing. Okay, the Gemara starts.
Yeah,
Masisa-
I was there when he said it. He says, "This is crazy stuff. A wife is supposed to look beautiful for a husband."
Yeah.
I thought it was
Then
something about that your hair shouldn't show, so your hair doesn't show.
It's not supposed to show for other men. It's supposed to show for her husband. Then-
I'm with you, I'm with
Yeah,
you.
yeah,
I think
no,
it's
there's no-
disgusting,
there's
too.
no-
I just don't understand how that-
Yeah,
it was-
no, but if anybody thinks that there is a Torah that says like that, there's no such Torah. There's no Torah. The Torah doesn't say such a thing. It's against the Torah.
I'm
And
not gonna say
even
anything to this one.
and even Kimchis,
I've never met her husband.
even Kimchis, who didn't show her hair to her husband, showed
Even-
her hair.
even what?
Kimchis, the famous Kimchis that she never.
Kim Chris?
Kimchis, that's a
Oh, the
Gemara brings
beams
down.
never saw her hair.
Right, but
But
her
her
husband
husband's-
surely did.
Of course.
It means if there was no reason to, she didn't show her hair in her house. She didn't go around without her hair covered.
Without
But,
it covered,
but-
but it didn't mean she
but
was.
when she was with her husband, surely the husband showed the hair. So that's crazy.
Okay.
Pasha. The one says, "Mashiach and lo Kabbalah Eliezer." Amish, it's not like Kabbalah Eliezer. Dear Rabbi Eliezer, Hama tiglachas ma keves. The chivin de lo gilcha asir b'chanra.
I'm sorry, did you start Masti?
Yeah, Mashiach and lo Kabbalah Eliezer. Amish is against Rabbi Eliezer.
Oh, okay.
Amish is not against. It's not Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer is a
It's
Tana.
not.
Amish is also a Tana. Amish does not fit with Rabbi Eliezer because Rabbi Eliezer holds that she's not allowed to drink wine until after the whole process is finished. Omar tiglachas ma keves. That till the whole process is over and the Nazir shaves his head at the end of the process, he's not allowed to drink wine.
Only
So-
after the shaving of the head.
Is the mutter to drink wine? And our Tana
What about
holds-
the shaving of the head and then you burn it, or what do you do with the hair?
it says in the pasuk that you put it under the korban shlomim. That's in the pasuk.
Can you drink the wine before it's under the cord?
That's what we're talking about. So everybody else, our Mishnah says yes, and after the Zrikas Adam, you're allowed to already drink wine of the first korban.
I know, but I'm talking about Rabbi Eliezer.
That's what, so he says not. You have to wait until the glachas, until the haircut, then you're allowed to drink wine. So according to Rabbi Eliezer, they're not allowed to drink wine. So then the Tanakama wouldn't make sense. If the Tanakama would have held that you're not allowed to drink wine until after the third korban, until you do the tiglachas, so then it surely affects the husband because she's not drinking wine. Not about the haircut. We're not going to the haircut now. We're talking about but since the haircut stops from drinking wine until you do the haircut, so there's no wine. So the islay nivul matzi mefresh. Since there's self-affliction, surely the husband will be allowed to be married. Tanakama wouldn't make sense if you don't like a belezer. So it must be that our mission is not going like a belezer, that you are allowed to drink wine earlier. When? From the first korban. Ahmed Beis. Tanadi done
So
Sava.
how did you do that? Kevin Gilcha, Gilcha, Asiva. What's the last line?
Since she didn't take, as long as she didn't take a haircut, she's not allowed. It's lanivo. She is self-afflicted, and therefore must be meifar. The Tanakam holds that the issue is as long as she can drink wine. If you hold that she can't drink wine until the haircut, so then he'd be able to be meifar until the haircut.
Yeah, okay.
So what they're arguing about? They don't know like a belezer. Tanadidan says everything depends if she can drink wine. Tanadidan sabachivin is darik aladam la'alter sharia b'chamra. As soon as they did the zrika of the first korban, she's immediately allowed to drink wine, and therefore he's not allowed to be made for anymore because it doesn't bother him. Well, that's lanibul. She's not anymore self-afflicted. Well, now Rabbi Kiva, this we were stuck in the Mishnah. So why does Rabbi Kiva argue? Why does Rabbi Kiva say from the shchita? After the shchita, why can you not be made for? She's still not allowed to drink wine. So let him be made for. Rabbi Kiva Saba, third line. Even after the shchita, it's already you can't do made for. Why not? You should have said kachim that the korban shouldn't go to waste. Since they shechted the korban, now you're going to say it's not going to be made for. It's not going to be a korban. You're not going to be a because it's always korban. So Kiva says that once you shechted it, don't waste the korban. We didn't know that in the Mishnah. We just understood the Tanakama that everything depends if she's going to drink wine or not. But Kiva says a minute before that he did the shechita, even though I also would add on that it's not such a long time to drink wine. You wait a second, they'll do it and drink wine also. But the Gemara doesn't say that. The Gemara says because hefset kachim. Because you're going to waste the korban. If he's going to be made for, it's not going to be a korban. So once you shechted it, don't waste the korban. Rabbi Zera has a kasha. Why is it a waste of the korban? There's a way to continue with the korban even if he's made for. When he's made for, so he canceled the naziros. They brought a korban chatas. Let's say ola shlomim. First, the Gemara talks about the ola and the shlomim. If you brought the ola and the shlomim first, so the Gemara has an eitzah that even if he's going to cancel the naziros from here on, but still the kachim is not going to go to waste. How's that? Don't do it for the purpose of the Nazir. It's not a Nazirus. You're right, it's not a Nazirus. But continue making it a korban. The Gemara, we'll see in a second, the Gemara is talking about the korban Ola and Shlomim. Ola and Shlomim, you can bring an Ola and Shlomim. The Rosh doesn't make us a little bit easier. You can bring an Ola and a Shlomim. Stam, you can bring an Ola and Dava, Shalom and Dava. Even though the person is not a Nazir anymore, the Nazirus was canceled, but there are three korbanos, the Chatas, Ola, and the Shlomim. Let's talk about the Ola and the Shlomim. That the person was a Nazir, she was a Nazir, and she bought the korban Ola or the korban Shlom, they shechted it, and now he's going to cancel it. He'll cancel the, so it's not anymore, but let it be in the double, let it be in the. The Gemara is a little bit fancier. The Gemara is not going to say, let it be in the double. The Gemara is going to say, even if you do it Shalom Lishma, let's say it's considered Shalom Lishma. The Ola that's brought for a Nazir, or the Ola that's brought for a regular korban Ola, Dava, it's also called Shalom Lishma. He didn't bring it for the purpose that it was supposed to have been brought. It was a Ola's Nazir. It was a Shalmi Nazir. Now you bring it for a regular Ola, regular Shlomim. That's called Shalom Lishma, but it's still kosher. It's a kosher Ola, it's a kosher Shlomim. Masif Larb this way Daman Shalom Lishman, V'yater Basa Bachila, that the meat it's not going to go to the waste. The meat will be able to eat by the Shlomim, let's say. Milo Tanya, didn't we learn that there's such a thing? Kivsiat Seres. Kivsiat Seres is a Shlomim. There's a Zivche Shalmei Tzibur. You say in the morning, Karbanis, Zivche Shalmei Tzibur. Zivche Shalmei Tzibur is only one such thing. What's Zivche Shalmei Tzibur? The korban Shlomim of the community. When does the community bring a korban Shlomim? There's only a Shlomim, there's only a korban Yachid. What's the Shalmei Tzibur?
Matras, Karbanis, Matras? And then when they have extra, and then they.
No, that's a korban Ola, and that's a Kais HaMizbech. There's no such thing as a Shalmei Tzibur. There's only one Shalmei Tzibur. That's on Shavuos. Shavuos is the Kivsi Atzeres, that's a Zivche Shalmei Tzibur, a very unique korban. There's no such thing as a Shalmei Tzibur. Zivche Shalmei Tzibur is the Kivsi Atzeres, that's the Shlomim of Shavuos. It's a korban Tzibur, it's very unique.
How many do you bring?
What?
How many are bought?
Two, Kivsi Atzeres. Sheshachtan l'Shalol Lishman. You did a Shalol Lishma, or Sheshachtan, you bought it for regular Shlomim, or Sheshachtan l'Fnei Zmanam, not on Shavuos, or l'Achas Manam, after Shavuos. Adam Yizorek v'habasa yechel. That you do this rikav, even though Shalom Lishma, you'll say a korban, and the meat is allowed to be eaten like a Shlomim. The Moiseh Shabbos, if it was Shabbos, then you're not allowed to bring korban Shlomim on Shabbos. Lo Yisrael, you shouldn't sprinkle the blood because there's Isser Rabbanan to sprinkle blood of a regular korban. Only the Kibbutz Atzeres is no for Shabbos. But if it wouldn't be a korban Kibbutz, you did a Shalom Lishma. So it's not a Kibbutz Atzeres, and it's not Docha Shabbos. Of course, if he did, then but the evidence is good. As far as what is it going to be good? That you are going to be allowed to bring the emurim on the mizbeach after Shabbos is over. Anyway, what do you see? That's possible. They skip Siyasa. What for regular shlamim? It's kosher. So too, if this Nazir, even if the Nazir is going to be canceled after the Shechita, so why does Rabbi Akiva say that it's hefset kashim? The whole thing is going to go into waste. It's not going to go to waste. Even if you continue with Shalom Lishma, it's still kosher. Even though it wasn't the Olas Nazir and it wasn't a Shalmei Nazir, but it's still a kosher korban. So why is it called wasting? The Gemara says, "Amri either shochat olo shlamim v'chanami." If you have three korbanos, chatas olo l'shlamim. You're right as far as the olo l'shlamim that you continue doing it for regular olo regular shlamim. But how about the chatas? Allah ma'askinan you're going to shochat chatas b'reisha like it's supposed to be. The chatas is supposed to be first, and if you do the chatas, you can't do it shalom l'shma. That if the first one was any one of the three is good enough, the first one can be the chatas, and really it's still stronger. The chatas is supposed to be the first one. So if you did the chatas first, then Rabbi Akiva says, don't be made fair, because what are you going to do with the chatas? Once the chatas was shechted, you can't do a chatas shalom l'shma. The chatas is partial shalom l'shma. Chalas v'acham shenis v'chul shalom l'shma is kosher except for a chatas. So there's no eitz over there. So if the chatas was shechted first, Rabbi Akiva says don't be made for anymore because the kashem is going to go to waste. So far, what do we have? Two shittas. We have Tanakama said that you're allowed to be made for as long as you're not allowed to drink wine. You're going to stop. You're going to cancel this not drinking wine, the self-affliction. So that goes until the zrika of the first korban. Then she's allowed to drink wine, not like a Bolezer. Bolezer says you can't drink wine until the blachas. Amish is not like that. Amish knows you're allowed to drink wine after the zrika of the first korban. So that's why Tanakama says you're allowed to be mefer until the zrika of the first korban. But after the zrika of the first korban, you're not allowed to be mefer because it's not relevant anymore. Rabbi Akiva says a little bit earlier, even by the shechita, even though you're right, she can't drink wine, so let him be mefer. No, because you're going to ruin the kachim. If it's a korban chatas was the first one, so it's going to go to waste. The korban chatas which was shechted, and now it's going to be canceled. So therefore, don't be mefer even after the shechita. But then the Gemara spoke about, the Mishnah spoke about the thing about the haircut, that Rebbe says, we don't have to do the whole Mishnah, surely the whole Nazir is over again. But Rebbe Meir or Rebbe says, that he doesn't want to take a haircut, even after she's allowed to drink wine, but he wants to make an emergency stop. She's going to go now to cut her, shave her hair. He doesn't want to have a wife who's shaven, so therefore it's considered something they know. It's affecting him. He's not to be made. How could you argue on that? Tanakama Malacha, Tikore Sheito. After the Pei Nachris. Nachris. The Pei Nachris is a Sheito. So what's the problem? She's shaven, but she wears a Sheito. So it doesn't bother the husband.
For her husband, she'll wear a shade.
She looks beautiful.
Nachris.
She can wear a Sheito. And it's talking about a sheitel, which is, as you see from this Gemara, Bashul Varmus brought it right that they had sheitels that were like perfect, like human hair.
Yeah.
It was human hair.
That was it.
And it was looked as beautiful.
Right.
So no problem. What's the problem? Rav Meir says there's a problem. Rav Meir said, but the husband doesn't want a sheitel. The Pei Nachris, Heidi the Zuama lo nichale. So the word Zuama means this usually means filth. The Rosh says that I mean you could say that maybe she gets perspiration from it. But you might say that's the Pshat Gemara, and it's not as good as human hair. And the Rosh says it means he doesn't want his wife wearing somebody else's hair. He wants his wife's hair.
Exactly.
So therefore, it's not an excuse. It's not a reason. It's not a reason why it's good. Tell the husband it's good enough. It's not good enough. End of the Gemara.
They don't know about the sheitel business.
So this
$1 billion business.
Instead of whoever they are, would they go like the Tanakh?
they're going to say their sheitel is just as good. Okay,
No, right.
but she should have a long sheitel. She should have a nice sheitel. She has to have a nice sheitel in the house. She didn't go around with a tikkun. She has to have a sheitel. She has to have a wig. Is this right? Anything about the whole question about wearing wigs? Do you see anything in this Gemara about if a sheitel? You know, there's a big tumult going outside. If you're allowed to wear a sheitel or not? Is there anything any line in our Gemara?
Yeah, from here we see that for her husband, she wears hair.
So you don't see answer. Everyone holds that the husband can see the hair. So there's no issue. And this Gemara doesn't say anything about wearing a sheitel. If anybody reads this
The
Gemara,
sheitel gets covered.
if she like from here, she wears it. She wears it as a regular hair.
Right.
Other people have real hair. She has the sheitel. Now, what do you do with it?
She's
When she's home, she wears it when she's home, and when she goes outside, she covers it. Nobody says here that she's wearing a sheitel outside. There's no right in this
She has to
Gemara.
cover. She's covering the sheitel when she goes outside. If
Like
she wears-
anybody else. Like Meshulam said jokingly, everyone's going. Let's say in the olden days that they didn't have this whole thing. Everyone's going out. They go. Everyone in the chutzner, let's say, in the houses, they wore their own hair. Then they go outside, everyone takes
They
out a
put on-
kerchief and puts on a kerchief, and
puts
she
on-
goes out, she goes out, and she goes out with her hair, with her shaitel. Everyone's covering their hair. Why are they covering their hair? Because you have to
Because
cover your hair
you-
outside. And she goes out and she doesn't cover her hair. Of course she covers her hair. She also takes out a kerchief out of her pocket and covers her shaitel because she's trying to show that it's real hair, right? That's the whole purpose, that she's showing it like real hair. Nowadays, people don't cop because everyone's wearing a shaitel outside. So, but talk about a scenario where no one's wearing a shaitel and everyone goes outside, they put on a kerchief. So she's gonna go out with her gilui rosh. She's gonna go with her hair. So of course, it's not right.
She could take it off and just go out bald.
It's true also. But the purpose of the shaitel was to place the hair, and there's no that's to make the whole sugya about is a mutter to wear a shaitel for a woman in the street or not. So Rabbi Shlomo Barmos put it so eloquently. He said in the whole shas there's no raya either way. There's no raya
raya
either way.
to wear or not.
Right? Is a mutter was it also no raya? Now what do you do?
Matter what the husband.
Now what do you do?
Now, what do you do?
What do you do when there's no raya either way? What do you think?
I would think you'd be.
When the Torah when the Torah says that the woman shouldn't go with her hair uncovered in the street, why should the woman not go in the cover in the street? Why? Why should she not go?
Because hair is erfa.
What is it? Is the erva, the hair of erva, is it because it's connected to the scalp, a din, or because it's beautiful? What would everybody say? What's
Because
the
it's
reason? Because it's beautiful. So now, if it happens to be a shaitel, but it's just as beautiful, is it any different than being the beauty of her hair?
No.
If so, then you just said a shaitel is also. There is no right. All the rights they bring are not right. Not right.
All I know is that Rav Moshe's wife wore a shaitel, and Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky's wife wore a shaitel.
How much-
Rav Shmuel Kamenetsky's wife.
Because all these shaitel, all these shaitels, they didn't look like
They didn't look like
human hair.
shaitel.
They didn't look like human hair. They look like a shmata.
Okay.
And that's why you're allowed to wear it. But if someone's gonna be as beautiful as a regular hair,
Well,
l'chorah it's it's mamish.
I know all those $10,000 shekels are not good enough. Or you're putting a lot of people out of business.